It's the right time for Right Time Radio. This is Lynn Donovan.
And Sue Hawes.
With me today is my co-host, Sue Hawes, and I say that second because I'm so thankful to Sue for filling in for Tom Bruno, who has gone on to greater things. That sounds like he
in California.
He is. He's in California.
Sounds like he passed.
I know. That's why I thought. Well, the way I was saying that, I thought, well, I don't.
That's what I was thinking. Like, did he leave us? I mean, what?
I know.
He didn't even send flowers.
Yeah,
Jay.
that's right.
He has sent me pictures of him on the wharf getting fish and chips, and just,
that's always good.
I think he's
down
having a really good time when he's off from work, and he's helping with the distribution of stuff from Amazon out of California. So.
Everything from A to Z.
A to Z, exactly.
Good, I can call him and say, "Where's my package?"
Yeah, where is our package?
Yeah, we have it in now. There you go.
That's what I'm thinking. I told him, I said, if you figure Amazon out, you explain it to me because I have no idea.
Well, Jeff Bezos has got Amazon figured out, so.
You're very right about that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, today we have got one of my favorite authors, of course, because that's what our show's all about. His name is Russell M. Chase. You've heard his stories before. He writes about Alaska. Now, he was actually in Alaska, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but these stories are set in like 1918, around that area, something like that. He's written 3 of these books, so they're a series. The first one was From Out of the Loneliness. The second one was Under the Midnight Sun. And the one that we're going to hear an excerpt from today is The Sun Dogs of Winter. And you looked at it, and you were pretty interested in it, weren't you, Sue?
I was interested enough that I looked at the library, and I want to let everybody know that Canyon City Library has the first 2 books of the series on the shelf, and Fremont will order them for you.
Awesome. And, of course, you can go to Amazon.com. Which is
and buy them
where everything is, right? And you can get an e-copy. You can get a paperback.
Yeah, Tom will ship it to you.
Tom will ship it to you.
Joking.
Yes, no extra charge because Tom touched it. You can also go to Kaleidoscope at 6th and Main because I know he has his books there as well. And if you talk to the Kaleidoscope, you'll probably can figure out a way to actually connect with Russell and get his signature. So,
signed
in one of your books. Yeah, exactly. So lots of fun.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Sue, we are following COVID rules today.
Yeah.
And so we're only allowing 3 people in the studio, so we can be 6 feet apart. We're all safe from each other. We're wearing our masks when we walk around. If you look on Right Time Radio Facebook page, you'll see a picture of Sue and I in our little masks, which we're so proud of because they're cute.
Do you need to put like names underneath them so people know whose is whose?
I've thought that. I thought, why not put your picture on there and say this is, this is
what I look
Lynn.
like with the mask. Yeah. That way, local law enforcement will recognize you.
And after the pandemic, before.
There you go. Before and after pictures.
Yeah.
That, or I want to put a sign on mine that says I'm smiling because I catch myself smiling at people and realize they're not smiling back at me because they don't realize I'm smiling.
And if you wear glasses sometimes too, that'll do it. You look at people and they're like, don't look at me.
Yeah.
Well, look at it this way. This is the only time in history you can actually walk in a bank with a mask on and everything's okay.
I know. And I can't help but feel when I throw my mask on, jump out of my car and run into the bank that I am robbing them, but I'm not.
And I've wondered about that too because people wear bandanas and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, well, what happens when you realize this is a real robber?
I know. I don't want to ever know what that's like, but I'm kind of curious as to anyone's using it to their advantage.
Yeah.
Our friend David Lynn Spencer, who's also an author here local, she posted on Facebook with her beautiful little bandana, and she said, "Give me all your Sherman and nobody gets hurt."
That's right. Just don't make eye contact and back away slowly.
Exactly. Thank God the Sherman's back on the shelf, though, huh?
I don't like Charmin. I hate their commercials.
Well, I don't mean Charmin specifically.
But yes, it's
Miss Specific. But I meant
she knows.
Thank God
I'm very
toilet
specific.
paper's back.
Thank God we can get toilet paper. Yes.
and Kleenex. for a while, there's 3 of us in my house, the grown people who like to have Kleenex at their immediate disposal. In other words, we can just reach right over and grab it. Plus, I keep one in my car. I keep one upstairs next to my bed. And you go to the grocery store and they say 1 per family. That ain't going to work for me. So I go back the next day and get another one, and the next day and get another one.
Wow.
Is that cheating the system, Sue?
I don't think so. It's still 1
Yeah,
per
they
family,
make the rules. You just
per
play by
day.
the rules.
You're just playing by the rules.
Because you know what they say? You need to wear a mask.
Yeah.
And they're getting more specific now. You need to wear it over your nose and mouth. But there for a while, just wear a mask. We can wear it on your head.
On your forehead. Yeah.
Under your chin.
Yeah, there you
I
go.
can see Tay doing that just to be ornery.
Yeah.
Somebody has to rock the boat. Might as well be me.
Might as well be you. All right. Well, Sue, would you do me a favor and go get our author, and we'll talk about where he comes from, where he cometh, and where he
whence
goeth.
he cometh.
There you go.
Yes, I am stepping out now.
He cometh from the foyer.
Foyer. He comes from the foyer.
Yeah.
And I really am very happy to have Russell. My husband also really loves Russell's books. And we've actually made arrangements with Russell and met him in your KRLN parking lot to buy a book from him. And he was gracious enough to bring this 3rd book to me, signed to my husband. So, sweetheart, I have a book for you when I get home. I'm so excited. You can take that one right there. And here's our author, Russell M. Chase. Come on, step up. So let me tell you a little bit about Russell. Russell, as a teenager and young adult, he lived in Alaska, and he learned much of what he writes today. Along with the trap lines and rivers, he traveled by snowshoe. That is so fascinating. Dog team and snow machine. What years were you there in Alaska?
I moved up in 72. Moved up in 72 when I was like about 15 years old.
Oh, wow.
And moved back to Canyon in 90.
In 90. So you spent a good portion of your formidable years in Alaska. And you still have family there, right?
Yeah, I have a brother and sister and cousins and nephews and nieces.
Awesome. And he's going to go back up there in a month during the hunting season, right? So
Yeah, my brother invited me up.
Right? To visit.
His partner's going hunting, but I'm not. I'm just
You
gonna
don't
hang
hunt?
out Well, I do, but I don't.
You're not going to
I'm not
this
going
time.
to this time. I'm just going to hang out at the cabin.
That's cool. So that's what I call a writer's retreat. All right. It was during these years that he wrote multiple articles for Alaska Magazine, Fishing and Hunting News, Voice of the Trapper, and the Alaska Trapper. After moving to Colorado with his wife and 2 boys, Russell earned a degree in criminal justice and worked for the Colorado Department of Corrections for over 22 years. During that time, he was a member of the emergency response team and escape team tracking escaped inmates in urban and suburban environments. I would think that would be a whole new series you could be working on, too. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, I worked some of that into the 2nd book.
Did you?
Some of the tracking techniques and stuff.
Awesome. Russell is now retired, God bless you, and currently hard at work on his newest Alaska historical fiction model. Now is that true? You're still working on
Say it again.
Alaska historical fiction novel?
Well, I've got a concept in my head.
Concept, yes. I told him we call those plot rabbits because they jump all over you when you least expect them. When not writing, he can be found fly fishing, hunting, and prospecting the Arkansas River in the Rocky Mountains. So if you see somebody out in the water that looks a little like this author, it's probably him.
Maybe.
Because he's out there doing it, yeah. How often do you get to go out fishing? I mean, you're retired, so.
Yeah, but I'm working a part-time job on the side, so I'm not really retired. But
right.
I get maybe once or twice a month I get to go
nice.
out,
Yeah.
Just prospecting or fly fishing or whatever.
My family loves fishing. Even our grandkids love fishing, so. Male and female. All right. Well, we are going to take a little break and throw in some commercials here. And then when we come back, we're going to tell you who's going to be narrating Russell M. Chase's 3rd book right after these commercials.
Got big dreams for your small business? You're not alone. Assurance Partners is a growing business too. That's why they work with Nationwide, the #1 small total business insurer in the U.S. Nationwide can help protect and grow your business so you can focus on making your small business dreams come true. Give Assurance Partners a call today at 1-800-563-1871. Nationwide is on your side. Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates, Columbus, Ohio, subject to underwriting guidelines, review, and approval. See your local Assurance Partners at 408 Main Street, Canyon City.
Are you about to finish your degree and not sure how you're going to make it? Your student loans are maxed out. You haven't worked in 2 years and you just aren't sure how you're going to cross the finish line. WIOA, take me away. Well, we won't take you away, but WIOA can assist eligible individuals looking to enter the workforce in an in-demand occupation to finish their schooling. Visit www.uawioa.com for more information and to apply for WIOA assistance. That's uawioa.com. We can help you reach the finish line.
I'm Tate Jeffords, the news director here at 1400 KRLN and Star Country 104.5. I want all of our listeners to know that here at Royal Gorge Broadcasting, we are constantly working to keep you updated with the most recent and accurate information on news, weather, and current events. If you witness breaking news or an event that you feel is broadcast worthy, please text or call me at 719-429-0795. Thank you for listening to 1400 KRLN and Star Country 104.5.
KRLN weather, sunny, hot, and breezy today with gusty west winds this afternoon. The high today around 95. Mostly clear and breezy tonight, the low near 61. Partly cloudy, hot, and breezy tomorrow with the high around 95. 54 was our low this morning after a high of 94 yesterday. Now at the weather station, we have 70 degrees.
Talk Radio 1400 KRLN.
Hey, we are back with Right Time Radio, and we are so excited to be back on the air. Last week was our first week, and this is our second week, and we're working around the COVID rules, and I think everything's coming out okay, don't you, Tay?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We're doing our best. You'll notice that we're on Wednesdays now at 9 o'clock instead of the Friday at 10. So be sure and tune into us each week because we're always going to have interesting authors on. Today, like I said, we've got Russell M. Chase. His books are available on Amazon. They're available in e-copy and paperback. You can also get them at Kaleidoscope. Is there anywhere else they can?
Cheryl's Book Nook.
Cheryl's Book Nook.
Yes.
Very good. And then the library also. So all kinds of sources where you can get them. Today we have got a really great person here. His name is Patrick Mulready. Patrick is, you know him from The Fools that was played in the Rialto back in January, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
And then earlier was the show The Whistler.
Yes.
And what parts did you play in Fools?
I played Count Gregor Yusekovich, known for his eyebrows.
Okay.
He has great eyebrows. And what did you play in Whistler?
I played Professor Beale, as in Beelzebub.
That sounds very devilish.
This is an opportunity to play something other than a villain.
A villain,
for the first
yes.
time.
Yeah, and what does he do for his daytime job?
What do you do for a daytime
You don't know what he
job?
does?
No.
This is the city planner
Oh, I
for
didn't
the
know that.
city of Canyon City.
I had no idea.
Got to meet him, a couple weeks ago when he came in?
Yes.
Talked about you today. It was all good. It was all good.
So Tay and you have a history, I see.
Well, one day, one show, but yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I never
Technically two, but I wasn't really in the studio.
Well,
that
no,
first
yeah, we talked on the phone, then you
Yeah.
came in the last time, so yeah.
Awesome. I didn't even realize that. Well, thank you for your daytime job. We appreciate all you do
It's
for
tough.
Canyon City. All right. Well, Patrick has graciously agreed to read this excerpt written by Russell M. Chase. The name of the story is The Sundogs of Winter. It is The Adventures of Dalton Laird. It is book number 3 by Russell M. Chase. Take it away.
Chapter 1. Frank Ward had changed some. 8 years of hard labor in a Canadian prison will do that to a man. Some men change for the better, some for the worse. Ward had changed for the worse. He'd learned to play the system and ended up on a work gang outside the prison walls. Once outside the walls, he killed an officer and made good his escape. Now he sat with his back to the wall in the dining area of the Tanana Roadhouse on River Street in Circle City on the Yukon River, just over 100 miles inside the territorial border of Alaska. Circle City had changed some too, from what Ward remembered. Back in '97, Circle was a bustling gold camp, ripe for get-rich-quick schemes. Then, with the discovery of the mother lode in Canada's Klondike, Circle almost became a ghost town overnight. Ward drifted with the rush from one town to the next. It had been several years since Ward had been here. Now there were abandoned cabins in various stages of decay strewn about the old city. Few miners hung on making a living, but Circle's glory days were over. Across the table with his back to the crowd sat Indian Charlie, a Cree Indian whom Ward had befriended in prison and who had helped with Ward's escape. Me getting impatient. Indian Charlie leaned both forearms on the tabletop and inspected the contents of the coffee cup he held in his hands. His comment jerked Ward's mind back to the present. Ward looked him up and down from under the brim of his hat, pulled low. Charlie always was a little compulsive. Ward had to talk him down a few times in prison, which had averted a few fights. That, in turn, was noticed by the officers and written in their reports, which, in turn, played a part in favor of Ward's outside work gang detail. Good things come to those who wait, Ward responded. I've been waiting and planning this for 8 long years now. We can handle another day or two. Ward watched as Charlie took a sip of the strong black coffee, and Charlie placed the cup back down. He swallowed, looked at Ward and said, I just no like being cooped up. Too much like prison. Not much we can do about that, not till that storm dies down on 12 Mile Summit, so the freight sled can get through anyway, Ward replied. Besides, Burkall's on his way from Chicken. He should be here today or tomorrow, and I ain't leaving till he gets here. Charlie looked back at his coffee cup and snickered a little. Ward felt anger flame up at the thought of someone laughing at him. With a leveled, measured tone, Ward asked, What's so funny? Without looking up, Charlie said, Chicken. Why you call it chicken? Ward relaxed, realizing Charlie was not laughing at him after all. The old-timers were going to call the town Ptarmigan, but nobody could spell it, so they agreed to call it chicken. Still inspecting his coffee mug, Charlie snorted and said, Silly white mans. The front door of the roadhouse swung inward, letting in a foggy rush of supercooled air and snowflakes that rushed along the floor and then vanished as it mingled with the stale, warmer air inside. The door slammed shut, revealing a large man with an ice-encrusted beard, fresh from the trail. Throwing back his fur-ruffed parka hood and removing his mittens, the stranger studied the patrons' faces. His eyes lingered briefly on Frank Ward and Indian Charlie as he warmed the icicles in his beard with his hand. He pulled the ice free, and gripping the lapels of his parka, the stranger gave it a quick shake to rid it of snow before pulling it over his head. Speak of the devil, Ward said, half aloud as he watched the newcomer. The stranger made his way to the barrel stove in the center of the room, stretched out his reddened, cold stiffened fingers toward the heat, and bellowed, Coffee! Rubbing his hands together, he glanced around the room at the other patrons, who by now had turned their attention back to their own affairs. Dressed in a red and white striped shirt with the sleeves rolled up, black trousers, and a white apron, the roadhouse owner brought him a steaming ceramic mug of coffee and said, 2 bits and free refills. The stranger paid him, cradled the mug with both hands as if he was holding a baby bird, then guzzled the hot black liquid. Handing the mug back to the owner, the stranger simply said, Refill. Then he made his way to Ward and Charlie. The stranger sat down next to Ward with his back to the wall and said, It's been a while. Yes, it has. Indian Charlie, this here's Paul Burkall. Paul, this is Indian Charlie. Me and him was bunkmates at Stony Mountain Prison for a couple of years. Ward watched as the two acknowledged each other with a quick nod of their heads and sized each other up. The owner returned with another mug of coffee for Burkall and a full pot to refill Ward and Charlie's mugs. Ward noticed him carefully looking at each of them as he poured. 2 days earlier, Ward had caught the owner eyeing him and Indian Charlie. Ward had passed it off as idle curiosity of strangers new to the settlement. However, with the arrival of Burkall, the man's interest seemed to be renewed in all three of them. It vaguely concerned Ward, so he filed it away in the back of his mind to deal with later. "Must be 30 below out there with the wind blowing," Burkall stated as the owner walked away. "But it's letting up some. I figure it'll blow itself out by morning." "Hope so," Ward replied as he watched the owner walk away. He took a sip of coffee, set it down, and continued. "The freighter sleds are ready to head out, and we got passage on them. They figure 4 or 5 days to Fairbanks." "You got this Laird fella located?" Burkall asked. "Billy Smith's been keeping tabs on him for me. Last I heard, Laird was running mail for the railroad somewhere between Fairbanks and Seward." Burkall took a sip of coffee, set it down, and slowly rolled the cup back and forth between the palms of his hands, then asked, "What's this Dalton Laird fella done that he needs killing so bad?" Ward noticed Charlie look at Burkall with wide eyes and quickly backed down at his mug. Ward involuntarily reached up and rubbed his notched left ear, remembering that day in the Amanita Saloon 8 years before when Dalton took Ward's knife away from him, slammed him down on the table in front of the syndicate gang, and pinned his ear to the table. To Ward's way of thinking, it was Dalton's fault Ward had spent 8 years in prison. Then there was Corrine, the girl he loved. In his mind, the girl he could have had if it hadn't been for Dalton. He felt the old familiar rush over his face as anger once again almost overpowered him. He fought it down, swallowed his anger, and said, "I've got my reasons." The next morning was clear and cold.
Let's stop there. We're going to take it off to commercial. We're just signaling each other over here, by the way, so...
She's using all of her fingers, so it's okay.
I am. I need a flag. I can just kind of raise this big flag. But anyway, we're still figuring out this COVID thing, but let's take it away to commercials, and we'll be right back for more of this exciting story. That's a good place.
Good place for a break.
Thinking of selling your home but just not sure you can during a pandemic? Hi, I'm Kurt, owner of Kurt Zerby Real Estate Group in Canyon City, and yes, you can absolutely sell your home now. In fact, in 40 years in the real estate industry, I've never seen a stronger seller's market. We take every precaution when showing your home. Our agents are required to wear masks and gloves and use disinfectant wipes while in your home. So let me take the worry out of selling your home for you. Give me a call at 276-2500 or visit us online at canyoncityhomesearch.com. Be safe.
Hi, we here at Twin Enviro offer residential and business services. We encourage you to call us and talk trash with us. We offer weekly, bi-weekly, and monthly service rates on trash cans and dumpsters. We also offer short-term rental on dumpsters and offer senior military discounts and first responder discounts. Call us at 719-372-6671 and become part of the Twin Enviro family.
After a short hiatus, Mr. Ed's Family Restaurant is back open. Steve says there ain't no virus gonna shut him down. Mr. Ed's will be open from Friday through Tuesday, 7 a.m. to 1 p.m., dine-in or take-out. Now you can call Mr. Ed's at 275-5833 and place your order. Choose from any one of the incredible menu choices. For Mr. Ed's Family Restaurant, 1201 Royal Gorge Boulevard, Canyon City.
Back with Right Time Radio, and we are so excited to have Russell M. Chase in our studio with his book, The Sundogs of Winter, and our narrator is Patrick Mulready, and we are going to listen to some more of this exciting story. Take it away, Patrick.
The next morning was clear and cold. The green, blue, and red ribbons of the northern lights weaved lazily across the star-studded black sky. Ward, Charlie, and Burkall ate a hasty breakfast alone under the watchful eye of the roadhouse owner, then donned their parkas. They headed to the 3 freight sleds with the horse teams already hitched and ready to go. Ward noticed a few other passengers making their way to the sleds as well. "Step lively, gentlemen. We've no time to waste," the wagon master called. "Sir," Ward said, getting his attention, "I believe I left something behind. I'll be back in 2 minutes," the wagon master answered with a frown. "Make it quick." Ward turned, and Charlie and Burkall told them to stay here. He then turned back to the roadhouse. Ward stepped inside, looked around, and then quietly closed the door. No one was in the room, but Ward could hear the owner rustling about in the kitchen. Ward pulled a knife from under his parka, turned the blade so it pressed against his right forearm, and slipped it up his parka sleeve. Quickly crossing the room, Ward snuck through the kitchen door and caught the owner by surprise. "What the?" Ward took 3 long strides and grabbed the man's collar with his left hand. As Ward watched the man's eyes grow wide, he said, "Shh, you've been eyeballing me for the last few days. Why?" I just thought I knew yous all." "Yeah? From where?" The Amanita in Fairbanks." "That's what I figured," Ward thought, as the familiar hot rush of anger flooded his veins. Only this time he did not force it down. "Sorry, but I just can't have word getting around too soon that I'm back in this country." Ward extended his right arm up to expose the blade, spun it around and drove it deep into the man's heart. Ward watched him gasp. Feeling a satisfaction cooled Ward's veins. Pulling the knife free, Ward spun him around, grabbed him by the hair, and slit his throat. Ward guided him back to the floor to avoid the spewing blood. The lifeless thing now twitched on the floor where the man once stood. Reaching down, Ward wiped the blood from his knife on the man's apron, replaced it in his scabbard, and then slipped unseen out the back door. He made his way to the freighters. Chapter 2. "Ha!" Dalton Laird yelled to his lead dog, and he dutifully swung left, and the rest of the team of 9 quarter-wolf sled dogs pulled the 16-foot freight sled with its 600 pounds of mail and freight up the bank of the Nenana River into the main street of Healy Fork. It had been a long haul. Driving through most of the night, Dalton was looking forward to a hot meal and some sleep. Dalton stood on the breakboard and plowed a furrow in the hard-packed snow of the street as they stepped in front of the combination post and telegraph office. "Whoa there, puppies. Time to rest. We've earned it." "Mail's in," someone yelled from inside. Dalton stomped the snow hook into the street's packed down snow and checked the dog's feet, one by one, starting with Annie, the lead dog. "Have a good trip, Mr. Laird? You're early," someone asked. Dalton turned and glanced towards the voice. It was Ted, a young man of about 20 who had a childlike mind. Ted had just stepped out onto the boardwalk. Dalton turned his attention back to his dogs and said, "Not too bad. There's a few open leads in the ice in the upper Nenana at Broad Pass, but the railroad subcontractors have cleared and graded some of the right-of-way, which makes for a good wide trail. What time is it anyway?" "Just past 11 a.m. on the 13th of December. My birthday." Ted stepped down off the boardwalk. He untied the ropes and lashed the tarp over the sled load. "The sun's been up for about 15 minutes now." Dalton turned to Ted. "Your birthday, huh? Well, I hope it's a good one. Going to spend it with your family?" Instantly, Dalton regretted asking the question. He'd forgotten Ted never knew his father, and that his mother had left him behind here in Healy Fork last year as she was passing through. No one ever knew what became of her. "Sorry, Ted, I didn't mean to." "Well, that's all right," Ted said as he frowned and looked down at the ground. Dalton finished checking the dog's pads, then turned to help Ted with the ropes. As he did so, he glanced south, the direction from which he had just come, and noticed a rare phenomenon. "Why, looky there. I haven't seen one of those in a while," Dalton said. "Sun dogs." Ted straightened up, and his eyes followed Dalton's. Just above the horizon, where the sun had also risen, appeared 3 suns side by side, as they watched the two outside suns slowly faded away. "Well, that was a nice birthday present. Kind of purty, wasn't it?" Ted asked as he turned back to the tied-down tarp. "Yeah, it was," Dalton agreed. "That railroad's going to make a lot of changes in this territory." Dalton glanced over at him as Ted spoke, taking his mind off the sundogs. He noticed a slight smirk on Ted's face. "Might even put you mushers out of business." Dalton thought a bit, then answered, "Well, it could, but there's still all the villages in the bush that need supplies and mail in the winter." He pulled the tarp off the load. "Well, that's true, but if that contraption I saw 5 years ago, what was it, back in 1913 in Fairbanks, ever catches on, that'll surely be the death knell for you." Ted tossed a 50-pound bag of mail onto the boardwalk. Dalton's curiosity was aroused. "What contraption is that?" He grabbed a bag of mail. "They called it an aeroplane. Some guy and his wife, the Martins, I believe their name was, rode in a machine about 200 feet up in the air over our heads. And fast, too. Someone said they was traveling 4 to 5 miles an hour. They wasn't suspended by no wires or nothing. They just floated along in midair." Dalton tossed the bag of mail onto the boardwalk beside the other bag, straightened up, looked at the youngster a minute, and decided he was telling the truth. "You don't say. I've heard of them aeroplanes." Then he looked down at the ground as he continued. "Didn't know they brought one up to Fairbanks, though. Ain't never seen one." "You sure missed out on a grand spectacle. Yes, sir, that was a sight to behold." Dalton thought a bit, shook his head, and spoke half aloud. "Even more change. My wife once told me it's called progress." "Oh, well." Looking up at Ted, Dalton asked, "How much freight and mail you got going out?" "About 300 pounds. "Well, I've still got about 500 here. I'll unload the rest while you haul those 2 big bags inside. Bring what you got out and stack it up with my freight. I'll go round to the other musher. You seen Frank Tondro around the camp?" "Who?" "Tondro. The Malamute kid?" "Oh, no, but if he's around, he's probably over at the cookhouse spinning his yarns." Dalton finished unloading the sled while Ted brought out the mail and freight and added it to the load destined for the Nenana Railroad construction camp and Fairbanks beyond. Then, pulling the snow hook, Dalton gave the command, "Hike!" 9 dogs, with an empty sled except for Dalton holding on for dear life, sped down the street to the small house he'd built not far from the construction camp headquarters. En route, Dalton noticed there weren't as many people in the community as there were earlier that summer. He fed the dogs, cooked rice and a dried salmon apiece, watered them, then bedded them down on fresh, dried grass, cut and stacked the summer before for that purpose. After cleaning up and changing clothes, he headed back to the post and telegraph office to see if there were any messages from Corrine. There weren't. He wished Healy Fork had a telephone system like Nenana because he longed to hear Corrine's voice. He knew that wouldn't happen until the railroad tracks arrived in another year or 2. His stomach growled, reminding him he'd not eaten since the day before. He headed to the cookhouse, a long building used to feed the railroad construction crew. Food was always available. As he walked through the door, Dalton noticed a few laborers and contract workers sitting together or by themselves, scattered around the dining area. 3 men sitting together at one of the tables turned in unison to look him over. By their dress, Dalton knew they were mushers or mail runners like himself. The Malamute kid was walking back to the table with his trigger finger crooked through a handle of a cup of steaming coffee. The kid stopped, looked Dalton over and said, "Hey, you old sourdough! Made it, I see, and early, too. How's the trail up from Talkeetna?" Dalton looked him over and smiled because the kid never failed to amuse him. The kid was a show-off. He wore seal fur pants and mucklucks, and his fancy squirrel skin parka with a wolverine ruff hung by the door. He was about 45 years old, right at 5 feet tall, and probably weighed 100 pounds soaking wet. Nevertheless, he was a heck of a dog driver, one of the best. Pretty good. Few open leads on the river, but the right-of-way where it's cleared and graded has a good bottom. You should make good time to Fairbanks. Mail's waiting for you at the post office, all stacked up and ready to go. Dalton made his way to the coffee pot. It looks to be about 800 pounds or so, of course. Dalton paused, poured a cup of coffee, then turned to the kid and said, with your team, that shouldn't be any trouble. What are you running now? 35 dogs or so? Dalton watched the other men's faces and saw a few smirks and grins as they glanced at each other. The kid was known for driving 30 or more dogs at a time during the winter, with up to 100 dogs in his kennel. He always looked good. He always took good care of them, but finding enough food to keep them fed through the summer months was a chore. 30, actually, the kid said. I'm 5 short. Loaned him out to another driver the other day who had a heavy load of freight, a big old fat woman headed to the States. Dalton snickered to himself and turned back to the food table. Looking it over, he realized there was no hot food, just sandwich makings. Mildly irritated, he piled his plate with cold roast beef and sourdough bread to build a sandwich. You know, if you was to get rid of them Indian dogs and get some wolf dog crossbreeds like mine, Dalton finished piling his plate with food and turned back to the kid, you wouldn't have so many to feed and they'd do twice the work. The other men snickered. Dalton sat down at the table while he watched the kid's face turn red. Oh, don't even start, Dalton. I like my little Indian dogs. Besides, I wouldn't trust your wolf dogs any further than I could throw them. I've seen too many of them turn on a man. You never know what they're thinking inside that wolf brain of theirs. Dalton picked up his sandwich, looked at the other men, and said, well, I wouldn't worry about it none. You would even make an hors d'oeuvre for one of my dogs. He took a bite out of his sandwich. The other men laughed out loud. The kid stood up and said with consternation in his voice, go ahead and laugh. One of these days, those dogs will eat you. Mark my words. Besides, my dogs are way faster than yours. Dalton tried not to laugh with a mouthful of food, but couldn't help himself. Finally, he swallowed and said with a smile, yes, you're right. Your dogs are faster than mine. I agree. I'm sorry. I was only joshing you. Now sit back down. The kid looked around at the others and then plopped down at the bench. Kid, you're a good musher, one of the best, and I wouldn't hurt your feelings for anything in the world, Dalton said as he struck out his hand. Friends? The kid looked him over for a moment, smiled, took Dalton's hand and said, friends. You gonna stay in Fairbanks for Christmas? Dalton asked the kid, changing the subject. Yep, you? I wired Corrine a couple of days ago to meet me here. We're gonna spend some time alone in our cabin up at the Stampede Trail on the Savage River and do some trapping. Just her, my son Jackson, and me. Dalton's mind drifted for a couple of seconds as their images floated to the surface. I sure miss him. I was kind of hoping they would have gotten here by now. He raised his coffee cup for a sip. Setting his cup down, he changed the subject again. Hey, guess what I saw? A sundog. This morning? You saw it this morning? White Moose Ned asked. Yeah, about half an hour ago. Well, you know what the ancient Greeks used to say about that, don't you? No, I guess I don't, Dalton replied. They used to say sundogs in the morning was a sure sign of an approaching storm. A bad omen. What about seeing them in the evening? White Moose scratched his whiskers. Don't know. I ain't never heard about seeing them in the evening. Maybe clear as a bell and... Oh, never mind. Yeah, that's what I thought. Never put much stock in superstition. So what's new around here? Dalton took another bite.
All right, this is Right Time Radio, and this is such a good story. I see why my husband absolutely loves these books, Russell.
Thank you.
Good job. Okay, we got one more set of commercials we're going to give you, then we're going to come back and finish up this story, and then we've got some questions for Russell. So if you've got a question for Russell, call us at 275-1400. Thank you, Tay. Give us a call because we'll let you talk directly to the author. But in the meantime, here's our commercials, and we'll be back right after this.
Fremont Realty has taken the new normal and put a positive twist on it. Their new freedom means they can serve you better buying and selling your homes and properties. With 150 years combined knowledge of the industry, their service is uncompromised. Proud sponsors of Real Estate Today, the show that can teach you what you need to know to buy, sell, and invest in real estate. Here at Sundays from 4 to 6 on 1400 KRLN.
For the times they are a-changing.
Gorge Radio, along with these local businesses, want to give you free money.
Visit one of these Money Day store locations. In the Alta store in Fremont County. High Country Bank, 150 Reynolds Avenue. Kaleidoscope Inspiration, 602 Main Street. Coyote Coffee Den, Highway 115 Penrose. And Waterhome number 1, 1532 Elm Avenue.
Be present at your favorite Money Day location for Money Day. Same time, 2:30, and same channels, AM 1400 KRLN and 104.5 Star Country.
And if you're a business in the Fremont or Pueblo County area and would like to be a part of our Money Day celebration, just give us a call, 275-7488.
Hey y'all, it's Chelsea Lynn. Join Annalie and myself every Tuesday afternoon at 2:30 at your favorite Money Day location for your chance to win some free cash.
So visit a Money Day store location, register, be present at a Money Day store location every Tuesday afternoon. Listen for your name, hear your name, call back, and win. It's that easy.
Don't forget to like us on Facebook for the latest Money Day details.
KRLN weather, sunny, hot, and breezy today. West winds gusting this afternoon with a high today around 95. Clear and breezy tonight, the low near 61. Then partly cloudy, hot, and breezy again tomorrow. Tomorrow's high around 95. 94 was our high yesterday with a low this morning of 54. Now at the weather station, we have 70 degrees.
Radio 1400 KRLN.
We are back with Right Time Radio, and we are finishing the conclusion of our excerpt of The Sundogs of Winter by Russell M. Chase, and is narrated by Patrick Mulready.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I never put much stock in superstition. So what's new around here? Dalton took another bite. Laughing, Ollie looked at the others, then said, Dalton, I gotta tell you, there's a new guy hanging around the camp. He's been hitting the bottle some and talking smack about somebody getting their comeuppance. He bandied about your name some, too. Been looking for you. Dalton swallowed. Really? What's his name? Don't know his name. Says he's waiting for some friends to show up. That's all I know. Dalton looked over at the kid. Shrugging his shoulders, the kid said, I don't know more than he does, except he's been behaving himself. Ain't broke no laws that I know of. Dalton looked into the faces of each man, searching for more information. No one seemed to have anything else to add. The kid stood, drained the last of his coffee, and then exhaled with a satisfied sigh, belched, then said, Well, boys and girls, wish me luck on the trail. I got a lot of mail to haul, and I best be getting to it. The kid walked to the door, took his parka off the coat peg, and pulled it on. Careful crossing the Tanana ice, Dalton warned. I heard it's snowing pretty good up north, and as warm as it is, there's probably some overflow. Yeah, I figured as much. The kid pulled his marten fur hat out of his pocket. And you watch yourself around that character. There's something about him I don't like. With that, the kid put his marten hat on, opened the door, and stepped out, shutting the door behind him. Luck to you on the trail, kid, Dalton thought, as he took another bite out of his sandwich. As he chewed, he wondered who the person they'd been talking about might be. And why is he looking for me? I could use some sleep, but that'll have to wait, I guess. I think I'll have a talk with the district engineer instead, he decided. See if he knows anything. Dalton finished eating, bid the other mushers farewell, pulled on his parka, and headed for the district engineer's office. Stepping up on the porch, Dalton read the sign above the door. Frank H. Bailey, District Engineer, Alaska Engineering Commission. Rapping on the door brought a response from within. Come in! Pushing the door open, Dalton stepped in, moved to his left, and made eye contact with Frank Bailey. Bailey stood at a file cabinet and appeared to be removing files and stuffing them into an attaché case. Well, hello, Dalton. How's the trail? Dalton smiled briefly and said, Fine, fine. He removed his parka and sat down in front of Bailey's desk. Just getting ready to close down the office for the winter. What can I do for you? Bailey sat down and leaned back in his chair. Well, sir, I understand there's been a man asking around camp about me. Know anything about it? Dalton asked. Bailey looked Dalton up and down for a couple of seconds, shook his head, and snorted lightly. Then smiled as he looked away back at Dalton. Yes, I do. One of my foremen told me about him. Dalton waited, but Bailey offered no more information. Well, do you know his name and what he wants? Calls himself William or Billy Smith. Foreman recalled seeing him around Fairbanks a few years back. He was sure this Mr. Smith was part of the interior syndicate. Say, didn't you have something to do with breaking up that gang? Dalton looked away to nothing in particular and searched the recesses of his mind, reliving the highlights of that period. Yukon Jack's ripped and bloody face appeared and faded as other memories surfaced and then faded. Memories of Ward with a knife, pinning his ear to the tabletop. Of Bandit, his lead dog, strong, loyal, and true to the end. Of Corrine, soft and warm by his side as the guns of John Batiste and the syndicate blazed away at their cabin. A black wolf. The Northern Lights. It all came back with a rush and then faded away. Looking back at Bailey, he said, Yes, I did. He did some time in the Fairbanks jail, got out, then left town. Haven't heard of him or the rest of the gang in years. Well, if this guy has some kind of vendetta in mind, Bailey leaned forward, keep it outside the camp. I don't have many laborers as it is because of the winter slowdown, and the ones I've got, I can't afford to lose from fear of getting killed or whatever. Dalton stood, looked down at Bailey, and noticed his eyes widen. I'll do what I can, but I ain't making no promises. Can you tell me where I can find him? Bailey looked Dalton up and down briefly, then said, I reckon you can find him at the roadhouse in Lignite, up the trail about 4 miles. Non-AEC personnel aren't allowed to stay in the work camp.
All right, folks, that's all you get today. But if you go to Amazon.com, you can buy the book and read the rest. Great story, Russell. I love these stories. Yeah.
Thanks.
And I'm so curious how much of this you experienced and how much you made up. That's kind of hard to measure, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, as far as running dogs.
Yeah.
I've had dogs.
You did run the dogs.
So I've had a little bit of experience, not a whole lot. But,
right.
That was always one of the best times for me, freedom on the trail.
Yeah.
A bunch of dogs.
I can only imagine. Well, I had door dogs, and I've seen sledding on TV. So, I mean, I guess I have a little bit of an idea, but I think also it's probably a lot harder than it looks, kind of like the Olympics.
A lot of work to take care of them.
Yeah. Sue, welcome back into our studio.
I'm here.
We've made Patrick move out, and you've moved in, so we're keeping our 6-foot distance from each other, being safe and everything. Sue wanted to ask Russell some questions, so go ahead.
What is an open lead?
Oh, you got a river frozen with ice. Sometimes it gets a little fast in the shallow areas, and the moving water opens up a lead, and sometimes there's thin ice around that, so you got to be careful when you're going around stuff like that.
Okay, I thought it might be water related,
Yeah.
but I didn't have it quite. And we talked earlier about how many dogs are typical, because when we watch TV, we'll see a mush team with 4 or 5 dogs. Mm-hmm. But in your story, you're talking about 35 dogs.
Yeah, normally with my dog team, I only ran about 4 or 5 dogs, and that's enough to carry you in the sled and some freight. And you don't have to take care of that many of them that way. But this particular person was a real person. He lived and ran mail around Dawson.
And that's the
Fairbanks.
Malamute Kid?
The Malamute Kid, yes. And he was known for running 30 to 40 dogs at a time. So.
Well, and what is this Indian dog that he supposedly has?
Yes.
Well, in years past, a lot of the whalers brought dogs in, and the Eskimos and the Indians had dogs, and they kind of interbred. And it became, I don't know, some people call them, I guess, Alaskan Huskies, because they're kind of native to that. But they can come in different colors and hair and length and whatever, but most of them are bred to pulling sleds, and they're usually smaller than
that's what I was going to ask, if they were smaller.
Or Mackenzie River Huskies, things like that are really big.
Right.
Now, we all think about Huskies when we think about, but Malamutes, which I had recently learned a little bit about. So I didn't realize that Malamutes were popular sled dogs either.
Yeah, they're mainly bred for freight pulling, weight pulling. They're not known for speed. The smaller dogs, like the Indian dogs, are usually faster.
The Malamutes have the heavier front.
Yeah, they're a lot bigger. Even the McKenzie River Huskies, that's a different breed, but they're big too, huge dogs.
So there's all kinds. Do the mushers? Forgive me for not knowing the right terminology, but do the sled runners? Do they mix the type of dogs, or do they try to get all the same kind? Or
it's like horses. It's
okay.
You want to match them pretty much close. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you'll have one dog that's get run to death.
Yeah,
the other dogs just
that makes
careful,
sense. Yeah. So they'd all run kind of at the same pace and speed and all that stuff. That's so interesting.
How would you choose a lead dog?
Yeah,
because I know they're very important.
Yeah, brains. You got to have a smart dog, and usually train them from a puppy. My first leader that I got, I trained myself, and I made her little. She was only about 8 weeks old.
It was a she.
Yes, female. When I started training her, excuse me. But I made a little harness for her, and then I just put a block of wood behind her so she could drag it around.
Oh, cute. That's cool.
She got to where she could figure out, not get that hung up on chair legs and stuff, after a while. And just worked from there.
So you watch them and get to know them. And
right.
Do you audition dogs for the leader? Do you change them out occasionally to see how they do?
Yeah, you can. Usually, though, if you have, in my case, if I had a good lead dog and she was working out great,
kicking the trash
kept
can.
her. I didn't try to train any others. So
interesting. What a fun thing to do.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, I have 5 dachshunds, and I keep teasing Russell because he has a handmade sled, and I keep telling him I want to hook up my dachshunds to his sled and take a picture.
Get along, little doggy.
I think we should do that and put it on the website.
I really do. And he was telling me about a guy that had the big dogs hooked up, but at the very front he had a poodle for the lead, right? A little poodle.
Yeah, that was kind of a photo walk.
I know, just for fun, not for real. Yeah, that's funny.
Did the poodle have pom-poms?
I don't remember. It was years ago.
Little ribbon in its top knot.
How fun. Well, Russell, we have so much enjoyed hearing this story. We've had you on before, and I really hope that you'll be writing us some more books, and we can have you back on the show. And
thank you.
Yeah, and read some more, because it's just really good stories, and you're a very good story writer.
No, thanks.
Love reading a good story writer, right,
yes,
Sue?
Yes, definitely. I went straight to see if I could get them at the library. Sorry, to see if I could get them at the library.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, all of us authors try to keep our books, our local ones, we try to keep our books in the library for that very reason, because we just want people to read them. So, what have we got going on? I don't even remember next week's thing. I'm
looking at her with a blank stare.
Well, I want to say it's David Lynn Spencer, but I will double check and I will post it on Right Time's Facebook page. If you didn't get to hear all of today's show, you can go to righttimeradio.my-free.website. Yeah, there's dots in between. There's a dash at the my and the free. Is that confusing enough for you? There's a website out there somewhere. Just Google it. And you can hear today's show. You can hear previous shows and all of that. You'll see who our next guest is. You'll see a little bit about us. And I don't know, whatever else I have on there. So, guys, go out and have a wonderful day. Be safe.
Stay cool.
Stay cool. That's going to be hard today. Mm-hmm. I was loving that rain.
Several days. See, I said because it's supposed to be monsoon season, but because I'm spending the summer in Colorado, I kept the rain away. So,
well, we've had a good deal of rain. But anyway, y'all have a very blessed day. Thank you so much for listening.